It's you speaking.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's May Day in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The Gambia's Auditor General Cisse rejects ministerial appointment by President Barrow. Civil society group Pen Plus Bites warns of rising threat to democracy in West Africa with launch of first disinformation index.
In the coastal regions, we realized that disinformation peaked around elections. So Ghana had just come from election, so there were some of the reverberations from the Ghana 2024 elections. And Ivory Coast, of course, is also going to elections, so 2025. So the data also picked a lot of disinformation around the elections coming up.
Reporters Without Borders reveals rising threats to Sahel's community radio journalists with a call for urgent protection. And Burkina Faso grants free visa access to all African nationals. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
We are glad you have joined our broadcast this afternoon. We begin in Ghana, where the civil society group Pen Plus Bites has launched the first ever Disinformation Index report for West Africa, warning that false information is fast becoming a serious threat to the region's democratic stability. The report, which covers Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, and Burkina Faso, was unveiled in Accra at a regional meeting on strengthening democratic resilience held in partnership with the National Endowment for Democracy, West Africa Democracy Radio, and the Sahel Institute for Democracy and Governance. Nada Detete in Accra reports.
The report ranks all four countries in the moderate risk category, but Ghana scored the highest with 57%, followed by Cote d'Ivoire with 53.9%. Both nations showed stronger civic action and detection of falsehoods, yet continue to face politically driven disinformation, especially during elections. Ghana's 2024 polls saw a surge of AI-generated deepfakes and manipulated videos that overwhelmed fact-checking efforts. Jerry Sam is the executive director of Pen Plus Bites.
In the coastal regions, we realized that disinformation peaked around elections. So Ghana had just come from election, so there were some of the reverberations from the Ghana 2024 elections. And Ivory Coast, of course, is also going to elections, so 2025. So the data also picked a lot of disinformation around the elections coming up.
Mali and Burkina Faso, however, recorded lower scores of 50.3% and 48%. The report finds that in both states, disinformation is systemic, state-sponsored, and often backed by foreign networks, including Russia-linked actors. Such narratives are used to entrench military rule, suppress dissent, and delegitimize democracy. Across the region, common weaknesses include poor media literacy, outdated laws, and limited awareness of fact-checking platforms. To curb these risks, the index calls for urgent action through cross-sector coordinated efforts. Jerry Sam again.
We have government, we have civil society, we have media, we have donor, we have academia. We want government to take the lead in making sure that the government promulgates laws that respects human rights, freedom of expression and speech, but at the same time is able to punish those who perpetrate disinformation.
The launch, which took place at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center in Accra, brought together regional stakeholders to discuss strategies against disinformation. Agnes Thomasi, station director for West Africa Democracy Radio, which was a partner for the event, stressed the need to go back to the basics in tackling disinformation.
When it comes to democracy, elections, voting, but what I realize is the bigger population is in the rural, remote communities in most of our countries. And then this is where information does not filter through.
For WADR, Nadede Tete, Accra.
Now, here in Senegal, Reporters Without Borders is calling for the protection of media professionals in the Sahel. The appeal amplified through an RSF-produced documentary titled Community Radios, They Are Fighting to Inform the Sahel, sheds light on the struggles of grassroots journalists as they fulfilled their duty to inform. The 26-minute documentary features 3 journalists from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger whose struggles resonate with hundreds of their counterparts across the region. Issues ranging from murder and assassination attempts to adoption, arbitrary arrests, lack of funding, and suppression of press freedom underscore the precarious circumstances under which these journalists operate. Abdullahi Hassan reports that the launch on Thursday evening in Dakar was attended by the media community, state officials, and other stakeholders.
Community radio stations serve as crucial platforms for journalists who remain committed to addressing key issues such as security, environmental concerns, healthcare, agriculture, and human rights affecting local populations. Sadibu Marong, RSF's Regional Director for West and Central Africa, states the importance of supporting local journalism while navigating resistance from certain state authorities.
We are increasing our support in terms of assistance cases. We are increasing our support in terms of safety training, security training, physical training. We are increasing our support in terms of capacity building. And capacity building is one of the most important things because many of the radio community stations, they are not well trained. They need to be trained.
Fatih Amadou Ali, director of La Voix de la Tapua radio station in Niger, emphasizes that even in the most fragile areas, information continues to circulate thanks to these courageous voices.
I am a female journalist. Despite administrative hurdles, financial challenges, and everything else, we persevered. Community radio stations are often overlooked, yet we've managed to reach the wider world. This is a battle we fought with determination, even amid stigma and issues tied to religion. I will keep fighting, and I proudly represent women.
The documentary screening deeply moved the audience who came to see this masterpiece. I watched the film with great emotion because it is a very topical issue, both in the Sahel and even here in Senegal. It's a subject that really touches me. Being from Mali, I am personally touched by their commitment, but I'm also afraid for them because I see the risks they take every day to inform. They are caught between armed groups on the one hand and military powers on the other. RSF says over 500 community radio stations in the Sahel and neighboring countries have joined its platform in calling for the protection of the right to local information.
Abdullahi Hassan fight that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now cross over to the Central Sahel region, particularly Burkina Faso, as the country announces visa-free entry for Africans wishing to travel to the country. The decision was taken on Thursday during the Council of Ministers. In practical terms, this means African nationals will be exempted from all payments during the visa application process. According to the authorities, the move is intended to strengthen the spirit of Pan-Africanism. Here is the Minister of Security, Mahamadou Sana, speaking about the decision.
Selon les dispositions de la loi 001.
Under Law 001/2024 of February 22, 2024, governing the conditions of entry and residence of foreigners as well as the exit of nationals and foreigners from Burkina Faso, access to the country has until now required a valid visa except in cases of exemptions provided for under certain bilateral or regional agreements. With this new measure, and in line with the Pan-Africanist vision of the head of state, Burkina Faso reaffirms its commitment to strengthening the historic bonds of brotherhood among African peoples. From now on, no African national will be required to pay a fee for a visa. Applicants will simply need to submit their request online to obtain the visa free of charge. It is important to note, however, that free of charge does not mean any exemption. Applications must still be filed online and reviewed. Once approved, any African national applying through this process will receive the visa at no cost to enter Burkina Faso.
Obtiendra gratuitement ce visa pour venir au Burkina Faso.
Mahamadou Sana is Burkina Faso's Minister of Security. Well, in neighboring Mali, our attention is concentrated now on activist El Bashir Cham, who is still missing as human rights organization raise concern about his whereabouts. The young activist from the dissolved party Yelema has been missing since May 18, 2025. He was reportedly adopted by state security and has since been held in an undisclosed location. UN experts have issued an urgent appeal calling for his immediate release. Francis Boniface has the details in this report.
In a statement, UN human rights experts are urging the Malian authorities to provide information regarding the location and conditions of Bashir Cham's detention. They expressed concerns for his physical safety and are demanding his immediate release, emphasizing that the Malian authorities should uphold their international human rights commitments. According to this independent UN expert, Bashir Cham is being held illegally and arbitrarily, with no legal proceedings initiated against him. The experts also lament the authorities' silence following a complaint filed by Cham's wife and a statement released by his friends. Yelema El Bashir, an activist from the dissolved party, was abducted on May 8 in Kati by unidentified individuals shortly after he criticized what he termed as an endless transition. Moreover, the UN-mandated experts condemned the government's crackdown on those perceived as opponents. They are calling for the release of all political prisoners, including those held for their beliefs, as well as civil society actors. So far, the authorities have not responded to the appeal made by the independent UN human rights experts.
Francis Boniface reporting there. Now to the Gambia, the country's Auditor General, Modou Cissé, has respectfully declined a ministerial appointment by President Adama Barrow. This rejection has been described as an extraordinary act of public service and principle. Just 2 days ago, the Office of the President announced Mr. Cissé's appointment as a Minister of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment. But in a swift turn of events, the National Audit Office says the Auditor General has opted to stay on his current role, keeping his commitment to government accountability. Sankule Janko reports.
At a time when integrity in public office is increasingly under scrutiny, Auditor General Modou Cissé has chosen to stay the course, rejecting a high-profile cabinet position in favor of continuing his mission to safeguard public funds. The decision was confirmed yesterday in an internal staff notice issued by the Communication Unit of the National Audit Office. It reads, and I quote, "The AG is dedicated to serving in his role and executing his functions diligently to impact the lives of citizens and public sector." Mr. Cissé is widely respected both at home and abroad for his rigorous audits and resistance to political interference. Sources close to the matter say the government may have sought his removal due to a series of damning audit reports, including findings of alleged financial mismanagement at the Independent Electoral Commission, the Gambia Revenue Authority, and even the National Assembly itself. Observers say the move to reassign Cissé might have been prompted by his refusal to alter critical findings in recent audit reports, including unreleased audits from 2021 and 2022. Staff at the Audit Office are reportedly mobilizing to defend the institution's independence, warning of a dangerous precedent if political interference is allowed to override constitutional mandates. Civil society organization Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, EFSCRJ, issued a strong statement calling the attempted removal of the Auditor General illegal under the National Audit Office Act of 2015. The Act outlines strict conditions under which an Auditor General may be removed, none of which apply to Mr. Cisse. He was appointed to the role less than 3 years ago in November 2022 and is not yet near the end of his constitutionally guaranteed term. Meanwhile, President Barrow's next move remains unclear. Unlike Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio, who removed that country's Auditor General through a tribunal, Barrow has no misconduct or legal charges to rely on.
Sankule Janko fight that report. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. The Gambia's Auditor General Cisse rejects ministerial appointment by President Barrow. Civil society group PEM Plus Bites warns of rising threat to democracy in West Africa with launch of first disinformation index. Reporters Without Borders reveals rising threats to Sahel's community radio journalists with a call for urgent action. Burkina Faso grants free visa access to all African nationals. Still ahead in the news, we have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for being with us. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Let's take you to Liberia as the government has announced adjustments to the petroleum pricing structure, introducing 2 new levies to support social programs and counter development. The move, spearheaded by the Liberia Petroleum Refinery Company, follows recommendations from the Senate and a directive from President Joseph Boakai. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The new pricing structure adds 11 cents per gallon, 2 cents earmarked for government social programs and 9 cents for county equipment. With annual imports of more than 154 million gallons, the measure is expected to raise about $17 million each year for critical infrastructure and county needs. Information Minister Jerry Limeke said the adjustment is necessary as Liberia faces a declining international aid, stressing that margins for market players will remain unchanged.
The strategic goal of this intervention is to guarantee nationwide availability and price stability. What are some of the benefits of direct importation? It ensures fuel security and reduce dependency on private importers, enhances government oversight, press control, stabilize market rates.
But the decision has sparked pushback. Permanent importer Musa Ability wrote directly to the president, warning the measure undermines efforts to create a business-friendly environment. Similarly, Jacob Dibi, chairman of the Rule of Law Caucus in the House of Representatives, argued the adjustment lacks legislative backing and could trickle disputes among importers.
The PFMI governs all matters related to the management of public finances, including revenue collection and accounting across government agencies. By unilaterally reducing terminal fees and setting storage prices, the APRC has effectively bypassed legislated outreach.
For now, the government insists the policy will stabilize the sector, strengthen oversight, and provide a sustainable funding stream for essential services. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
This segment of Newslink takes us back to Ghana, where civil society group PEM Plus Bites has launched the first ever disinformation index report for West Africa, warning that false information is fast becoming a serious threat to the region's democratic stability. The report, which covers Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, and Burkina Faso, was unveiled in Accra at a regional meeting on strengthening democratic resilience held in partnership with the National Endowment for Democracy, West Africa Democracy Radio, and the Sahel Institute for Democracy and Governance. Our guest is Jerry Sam, Executive Director of Pen Plus Bites.
So this is actually a follow-up from a convening meeting we did last year to present a scoping and baseline study we did in the Sahel and the coastal countries. In that scoping study, one of the recommendations was that to have a tab on disinformation, we don't need to do a one-time standalone research, but then it has to be of a longitudinal study to build on what we found during the scoping study, and then develop new strategies, because disinformation as it is not static. It keeps on changing, and the actors also keep on changing. So we who have dedicated ourselves to fighting the menace, we also need to adopt that same strategy of not being static, and we have to change. So that recommendation from that study, and also the convening meeting we had last year, April, pointed us to do this disinformation study, which is to understand what the new trends are, what are the new strategies being used by actors, what are governments doing, what are civil society doing, what can we inform academia in terms of their research and the knowledge building that we can share.
What are the key findings of this index, and how many countries did you survey?
Okay, so the key outlook for this, particular research, this particular index, was to look at electoral disinformation and also look at how disinformation affects democratic institutions. Of course, we did a research in 4 African countries. We couldn't do the whole of the African countries because we had to sample. So we sampled 2 countries from the Sahelian region to understand how disinformation manifests in the Sahelian region, and also look at the coastal countries, where we chose Ghana. Ghana was a convenient one because we are based in Ghana, and then also Ivory Coast, because Ivory Coast is going to have elections this year. Indeed, it's going to happen next month, and to see, what factors influence this information around the electoral cycles, and then make concrete recommendations. And some of the key findings, which was interesting, was that all the 4 countries fell within the moderate score, around 48 to 55 or 60, being that, which actually for me was a surprise, because I thought that the democratic countries in the coastal regions will have higher score, and then those undemocratic countries in the Sahelian region will have lower score. But then the key standout, is going into the nuances of the research, where we found out that even in the undemocratic countries, before the military took over, they had initiatives and activities in curbing disinformation. I mean, Burkina Faso has very strong media information literacy programs. Mali had, and still do have a strong civil society, vibrant civil society activities which seek to, curb disinformation, do a lot of education around the adverse impact of disinformation. And then for media, one of the key recommendations is that because, in the reports, we found out that a lot of people had trust in traditional media, and so we believe that needs to be upheld, and so the media should have fact-checking desk, at least, so that critical news before they come out is fact-checked within before it goes out. For civil society, there should be more initiatives around MIL, and then coming back to government, also we're advocating that media information literacy becomes part of school curriculum, so that we catch the children young, and build their competencies around media information literacy before they spread misinformation when they grow up. And there also be a check on adults, because, as we heard, a grandmother asks the little child or granddaughter to check information before she spreads it. So if that child has that, then they'll be able to tell their parents and the adults within their communities what is good and what is not good, what is misinformation, disinformation, and what the impact is.
Jerry Sam is the Executive Director of the CSO Group, Pen Plus Bites. Now, in the world of sports, Sankule Janko joins me. How are you doing, Sankule?
I'm doing pretty okay, Augustine.
Well, it's 100 days to the next AFCON, so tell us more about what's happening.
Yes, you're right. It's exactly 100 days today to the next AFCON, of course, which will be held in Morocco. And for people like me who are excited, I'll be like, okay, probably they should have just retained it in Cote d'Ivoire because the AFCON in Cote d'Ivoire was phenomenal. I'm sure you had good memories of that.
But it could also be better in another country.
Well, it could be better. Let me just give you some details because, as he's likely said, it's exactly 100 days. The CAF Africa Cup of Nations 2025 kicks off in Morocco, the first time the country will host the tournament since 1988. The 24-team event runs from 21 December 2025 to 18 January 2026, with the matches set to take place in 9 stadiums across 6 cities, including Rabat, Casablanca, and Marrakesh. Following the record-breaking 2023 edition in Cote d'Ivoire, this year's tournament is expected to reach even greater global audiences. Defending champions Cote d'Ivoire will look to retain their title in what promises to be a festival of African football excellence. Morocco, meanwhile, already preparing to co-host the 2030 FIFA World Cup, recently impressed with the successful hosting of the CAF Women's AFCON and under-17 AFCON, reinforcing its reputation as a football powerhouse on and off the pitch. And also, mind you, Augustine, Morocco is the first African country to have secured qualification to the World Cup, the 2026 World Cup so far. So that tells you a lot about Morocco. They're prepared on and off the pitch.
Can we say there are other things following, like Tunisia doing well so far?
Yes, so far, of course, other countries, of course, have been in March Day 9 and 10. We have the likes of Tunisia, of course, expected to make it through. Senegal as well. It will be tough because DR Congo is catching up very closely right on their neck. And other countries also like Ghana probably could make it. Cote d'Ivoire, of course, the reigning African champions are also expected to secure a qualification. But let me bring you some news, and we head to Nigeria. Because talking about the World Cup qualifiers, Nigerian captain or former Nigerian captain John Obi Mikel has called for the dissolution of the NFF if the Super Eagles fail to qualify for the 2026 World Cup, citing poor leadership and disorganization. And that is highly unlikely. Like we discussed, Nigeria, they are only on miracles. They can only qualify because of miracles.
What's happening to the Super Eagles? What's happening? Is it technical problem? Is it the unwillingness of the players? Because they have a lot of potential players in Europe.
It's not the unwillingness of the players. Every footballer is always excited to represent your country. And I could see the hunger and the desire in the Super Eagles players, particularly when they're playing against Zimbabwe. You could see how much, you could see the likes of Osimhen. They are hungry. They want to qualify. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And then now, former captain is now calling for the dissolution. Or he's saying that the federation should be banned because he's blaming the poor performance of the Super Eagles to the administrators. So that's why he's calling for their ban. And talking about that, still in Nigeria, because Nigerian striker Ademola Lookman is expected to be back at Atlanta's training ground today after returning from international duty. This could be his first session under new coach Ivan Juric following a tense transfer saga in August. Mind you,
just to hold you, if Nigeria's Super Eagles do not qualify, this will be a problem or an embarrassment for Lookman. Don't you think so? I mean, being Africa's quote-unquote
yes, I mean, he's the
best.
African best player at the moment having the title, but football is a team game. Lookman in itself cannot qualify Nigeria to the World Cup. So if did not make it, that's not on him. Anyway, but it's good that, following transfers, he was supposed to actually leave Atalanta to go to Inter Milan, but the deal collapsed. Now, it's good that, he's back and then the team have welcome. And then finally, Ghana's 2025-26 Premier League season kicks off tonight as Hearts of Oak faces newcomers Hohoe United in Accra. Guess what? President John Dramani Mahama is set to attend.
Yes, we hope to see what's happening in Ghana today. Thanks, Sankule, for the sports. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Ismaila Kamara for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. At 1 p.m., Demba Amaan and Mam Antandu will be here with the news in French. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM, Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and